Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to this week's recap video. This one's going to be a little bit different because Aaron is under the weather, so he is not joining us today. And it feels strange to do a recap without him. I used to do them all the time, but it's so nice to have him involved now because he offers a different perspective, a different way of thinking about things. Anyway, so I think he's kind of coming out of it today. He's looking a lot better, so I'm hopeful by next week we're all kind of back up to snuff and feeling better. I swear this winter has been so weird. You know, one or more of us has been sick since just about Christmas in our house. And it's been kind of a foggy, gray, drizzly week, which is good because it's getting rid of the snow, but also it would be so nice to see the sun. So anyway, that's where we're at in that realm. Before we jump into the questions from this last week, today's recap video is sponsored by HoseLink, which you guys, they have retractable hoses. We've talked about them a ton. They have them in 50 and 82 foot lengths. We've got a lot of the 82 footers and they've been a game changer. And whenever I see people chatting about hose reels, because there are a few different types available, it's kind of like the general consensus in the comment section that HoseLink is where it's at. And I believe that. So we've had such a good time with just how they operate, the longevity of them. We've had, when did we get our first hose reel? I think it was like 2017 or so, like 6 years. It seems about that long. Anyway, they've been just working great, and we just we've been adding to our collection every year. So anyway, we will link them down below if you guys want to check them out. It's a great thing to add to the garden for this next gardening season. All right, so let's just jump into the questions now from the videos from this past week. First one was winter houseplant tour in the Hartley. So we just took some time out. It was kind of a sunny, I think it was a sunny afternoon. It was warm in there, but I wanted to just go plant by plant and show you the state of the union, how all the plants in there were doing, what kind of plants I have in there. There are a couple that need attention. There are several that need to be repotted, and then some that look really great. So it was just kind of a fun thing to do, I felt like. JKT479 said, how do you clean the outside of the Hartley? I'm getting a white greenhouse and I'm concerned about how dirty it will get and how to keep it nice looking. I had the same exact concerns because, you know, we don't get a ton of rain, but when we do, it always seems to be accompanied by wind. And so the wind blows like the dirt from the farmer's fields, and we've got open fields near us. It blows the dirt, and then the rain like brings the dirt down onto surfaces. And I thought, oh my gosh, is this going to be so dirty all the time? Am I going to feel like, am I going to regret having all of this glass? And, you know, honestly, so one of the things we do have help with around here, we do have somebody come in and clean windows 4 times a year, once every season. So winter, spring, summer, and fall. His name is Jeff, and he does an awesome job. So he does the Hartley, but that's the only time it gets cleaned, 4 times four times in a year, and I don't notice the dirt between. Maybe a little bit on the cold frames toward the end of the summer season, like end of summer, beginning of fall, when leaves are starting to drop and it's kind of becoming a little bit more messy out in the garden anyway. I do notice a little bit collecting there, but you can easily blow it off. But in terms of glass, I don't even notice spotting on the glass. It's crazy. So I've been really, really happy with it. Patty said, just wondering, is the floor in the Hartley very cold, especially after snow? I'm trying to protect some fragile plants by setting them on a salvaged slice of tree trunk, which is a really good idea. If you know you do have a cold surface, putting them on something that's a little bit more warm and less, I don't know, it doesn't hold on to cold so much. That's a good idea. The Hartley floor is not very cold. In fact, I usually go barefoot in there. I think I was in sandals that day, and that was more for your guys' benefit so that I wasn't just walking around barefoot in there. But I don't find it cold at all. It's cool because it's just like a patio floor or a patio outside. It's got the gravel layer, a layer of that screeding sand, and then the stones and the polymeric sand in between the stones. So like if water drops on that floor, it just soaks in between the stones and goes away. But I think that the structure just keeps in so much heat that the floor is really quite pleasant to stand on barefoot. Blended with Madonna said, my fiddle leaf has dropped all its leaves. I water it the same as all my other plants, and I think it needed more water. After leaf drop, is the plant dead? Should I keep watering across my fingers? It's not necessarily dead, but there's a few things I would check. I mean, did you move it recently? That's one reason why they might drop. If there's been any kind of change in its climate, like if there's been more drafts or if there's been a change in temperature, the fluctuation can cause leaf drop. Also, I find that my fiddle leaves don't need quite as much water as some of my other plants, so it might be that it got too much water. It depends on what the leaves look like too before they dropped. Like, did they yellow like toward the bottom and then drop off, and did it kind of just work its way up up the plant, or did it just drop all of its leaves like all of a sudden? Usually that's more of an environmental thing, but I would check the root ball before you continue watering. Like, lift it out of its pot, because sometimes the finger test won't even work, because that top layer of soil can still like dry out visibly and to your finger touch, but what you don't see underneath, sometimes like the plant's root system kind of goes like this. Sometimes up underneath the roots, they can hang on to moisture that you can't see or detect. So you want to make sure it's not like kind of rotting from the inside out before you continue watering. That's what I would do anyway. Jay and KG said she is so knowledgeable. She's like a plant doctor. I wish. Does anyone know if she has a degree in horticulture? I'm really interested in her background. So I do not have a degree in horticulture. I grew up in it. My parents have a garden center here in town. They have a couple acres that's landscaped out at their house that I grew up in. So I helped in the garden. I had extensive chore lists every single week of things that I helped with out there. And I think that was a really good kind of base education. Not that I really engaged in it too much back then, but I think it gave me sort of a working schedule in my mind of what to do with certain plants, like when to cut things back, because I had to do that in my parents' garden. And then it wasn't until Aaron and I got married, which was a little over 17 years ago, I started gardening on my own and having to figure some things out on my own. And then also I worked at the garden center for a little over 10 years, and that's where I really learned a lot from customers, other gardeners that came in. I learned a lot just from the type of plants that we got to bring in and taking care of them. Also doing a bunch of reading, tag reading. Oh my gosh, I've read so many plant tags because I watered for a lot of years, standing out there with a hose watering plants. And I would look at plant tags and I would read, what are the zones of this plant? What are the issues? What is it resistant to? And I would also learn about leaf structure that way. I would pay attention, especially in the tree section, because people would bring in little sections of plants all the time for us to ID. And at first I was like, I don't know. Like, I could tell if it was a maple tree, because those are very easy to identify, and oaks. But there's a lot of trees that like kind of have similar leaves. So I would be back there watering trees, and I would really study the leaf structure, what the bark looked like. So now when we're driving around, I can almost always, in our area, our immediate area, I can identify what the plants are, even if they don't have leaves on them right now. If we go out of our area, I'm a little bit more a fish out of water, because I'm very, I don't know, that's kind of what I learned was our area's plants. I think that's what most people learn about the most. Next question from user KV said 19 degrees and you're in sandals. Can't wait until spring, can you? No, I cannot wait. And also the floor is nice in there. I usually, like right now, I'm bare feet too. I usually wear my snow boots around when it's, because I just slip them on with no socks or anything. I just slip on my snow boots, walk from one building to the next, and then just throw the snow boots off and go around barefoot. Catherine said, will the pink princess philodendron need support as it grows taller? It will. It is a climbing type plant, so it's probably due probably pretty soon here. I've had it in there for a little over a year. It might need a repot at this point, and then when I repot it, I will most likely add some support so it can climb. Dolly Fan said, cyclamen, love them, but I kill them. What are your secrets to success with cyclamen? I have the best luck with them if I put them in as bright of a spot as I can and give them a ton of water. The white cyclamen in the greenhouse, or in the Hartley, that container is non-draining, and I still have to water those cyclamen almost every single day. It's nuts to me. Heather Dobbs said, who is filming you today? Aaron filmed that. Whenever we do a tour, when I kind of need both hands and I want to show things, he will help out and film. Most of the time I'm filming myself, and most of the time that's what I prefer, because I can go kind of at my own pace, and I feel like it's a lot less informal, or a lot less formal, and it makes me more comfortable. Whenever we're filming something where Aaron's kind of standing behind a camera and I'm up here, I feel like I need to be in presenter mode, which is weird, and I don't like that feeling. I like it to feel a little bit more informal. So anyway, he was the one filming that day, and it didn't feel super formal to me then. Housewarman said, you mentioned moving a plant to the greenhouse. How are the conditions in the greenhouse different than in the Hartley? There's temperature and humidity differences for sure. I feel like the plastic greenhouse, it's a lot cooler and it's a lot more humid. In the Hartley, it's a lot warmer and a lot more dry. And it's just a mixture of different types of heaters how we're heating it, different types of floor. You know, I don't know if the plastic just creates more condensation, but there's a little bit more of that in the plastic greenhouse. And then we have in the Hartley, which I'm thankful that we don't have condensation in there. Never dealt with that on the glass. It's just been kind of a dream, the glass in all ways. But also, if a plant is struggling in the Hartley, like that's kind of like the beautiful spot, and I kind of want all the plants in there to be, and they're not right now, but to be potted in pretty containers. And if one is struggling, I'll move it somewhere where it might like it even better. If it's struggling in there, it might need a more humid environment. So if I move it to the plastic greenhouse, hopefully we can get it to recover there. So we just kind of like switch things around depending on what I feel like the plant needs. Next video was cleaning and sharpening my Felco pruners, and it just felt like a good project to do on a day that started out at negative 6.3 degrees Fahrenheit. It was so cold that morning. And I actually still have Felcos that need attention. I left everything out. It's all like just scooted to the sides here. Yeah, I've got more I need to get done, but it just felt like a good project to do. Well, it's always a good project to do in the winter time, just to maintain your tools, get them ready for the next season. And it just helps your tools live a longer life. I mean, you take care of your stuff and you'll have it forever. And I had a pair of Felcos that I found out in the grass last year. I don't know how long they sat out there, probably not that long, but long enough to where they sat under sprinklers and had some rust build up. So I thought, well, this is a perfect pair to kind of show a before and after. Like, these are pretty messed up Felcos, and hopefully in the end I can show a pair that looks a little bit or a lot better than how they started. And you know, I see a lot of people post pictures of Felcos they found at yard sales or estate sales, and they're just a little dirty. So I thought, you know, if I could show again, we've shown the process before, but if I could show the process again, you know, from time to time, maybe it would help some of you guys out, showing you how you can do that on your own. Also, the first time we filmed that video, I used a big bucket of warm soapy water to clean my Felcos, and the people at Felco were like, oh my gosh, no water, don't use any water when you clean them. They said it's fine, like you can absolutely use water if that's how you want to do it, but you have to be so sure that those pieces are 100% dry before you put them back together. And if you don't, you can be creating bigger problems for yourself. So this time I was determined not to use water, to use all the proper cleaners, and things turned out really, really nicely, I think. B said, what do you use to clean off your blades after everyday chores? I don't. I only clean them off if I've been working in fruit trees, because I don't want to spread anything. If I've been working with anything I think might be diseased in any way, I would clean them off, but largely they just don't get cleaned off. Jen Crow said, my Felcos are just as bad and kind of embarrassing, actually. I've cleaned them without taking them apart, but the improvement was minimal. Now I have no excuses. Do you know of a product that can be used to recoat the handles? Years ago, I found a product that you could dip the handles of your tools into for great protection, but lately I have only found a spray, which doesn't make sense to me for using on tool handles. I am afraid I am not a lot of help in that department. I can ask somebody at Felco and see if they have any wisdom for us on that. I don't know of something to recoat the handles with though, but I know that the coating does eventually wear. My mom has a pair of Felcos that she's had for I don't even know how long, and they're worn in her exact like hand pattern. DG said, great video, thank you. Side note, anyone else notice the can of Coke, a new sponsor? No, probably a habit I should kick. Diet Coke. Halloween Home Hunter said, I adopted 2 Felco pruners and both are extremely rusty. One has a locked up spring, so it's stuck wide open. Stuck while open. Should I just replace the spring on this one? I would. I mean, you could try soaking it, but it's hard to get on the interior of the springs if they're too bad. But that's one of the benefits of Felcos, that you can order an individual part for so much cheaper than replacing the whole pair of pruners. I would go that route. Valerie said, can we purchase the cleaners and sharpener in your shop? You can, and I don't think I mentioned that in the video, but I think we sold out of a lot of that stuff anyway. So thank you to all of you who did order. Thank you for the support. We will be getting those things back in stock here pretty quick. Next question, could you also do a video on how to clean and sharpen larger garden tools such as spades, shovels, etc.? I thought you had done one in the past, but I haven't been able to find it. Like when you say that, I feel like there was something in the past where I did shovels. I did shovels and like our grass edger. I'll try to find it. If I can find it, we'll link it down below. It's possible it was a really old video and we've taken it down, in which case we'll need to do a revisit of that subject. Alexis said, thank you for refilming this video. I've used your former video as a guide several times. Great to have an update. Question, when do you know you need a new blade? Oh, you'll know. If there's like big chunks out of it, which happens sometimes, like the blade gets notched out. I've cut things I shouldn't cut before, like big pieces of wire, metal kind of stuff. And I've messed up blades pretty badly. If you just can't get them to like line up properly, yeah, you'll know. You'll know when it's time. Sarah said, I might have missed it. Did you say how often you clean your pruners? Is it like a yearly thing after garden season? That is usually how it goes. There is an occasion where I'll do it in the middle of the season if they get too gummed up with something, like if I've been cutting something that's got a lot of sap, which happens on occasion, I will give them a good clean. But most of the time it's once a year. And honestly, it would be better if I did it a couple times a year, because I think that they would be easier and nicer to use if we kept them like at peak sharpness and like peak working order. Brian and Tammy Olson said, this is my biggest regret in gardening. I never clean my pruners, and I believe it has contributed to diseases within my garden and damaged branches from not being sharp. What if a gardener can't afford a Felco and only has cheaper ones or hand-me-downs? Thank you for all the good information. I think you can apply a lot of the same principles. I'm not sure that all of those pruners can be taken apart like Felcos can, but I think you can do a lot in the way of cleaning by using, some of the cleaner, well, especially like this one here, like the 980 spray. This is kind of a general purpose. You don't have to make sure you get every bit of this wiped off, as opposed to like a heavier duty cleaner that can actually corrode aluminum if it sits on aluminum for too long. So you want to be careful about what cleaners you are using. So in a case of a pruner that doesn't come apart, I would use something like this. That's just like a really good cleaning spray, but also a lubricating spray at the same time. So if it gets into the mechanism, it's actually a good thing for it. And then also like a hydrophobic grease, the synthetic grease, you could put this kind of like squeeze it in between like the little pieces, and that'll help kind of soften things up in there and keep them moving nicely. But I think you can still clean your blades and sharpen your blades even if the pruners are together. So I think a lot of the things except for like individually cleaning each part can still take place. Okay, the next video was containers for the brick patio and how to make a rosemary tincture. And that was kind of one of those projects where I started both projects and I couldn't really finish either one of them that day, but they were things that I was excited for. Like those containers, we ordered them a while ago and I thought they were supposed to be here in November, and it kept getting pushed out. So they finally arrived here mid-January, which doesn't really matter. Like anytime in the winter is fine, but it was so snowy we couldn't really see even where to place them, so we just left them on pallets. But they are the extra large not garland, just jardinières, I think, jumbo, kind of on all the corners of the brick patio. So I had to make 4 trips down to the garden center for those because our truck only fits 1, and our at the moment our trailer was too snowed in to get it out. So, and then we went into the Hartley. I cut up a rosemary plant I have in there, and we started a rosemary tincture, and I just explained what a tincture is and kind of how I was planning on using it, so on and so forth. And that has to sit in a cupboard for 6 to 8 weeks. So we couldn't strain and finish that either. Wendy said, hey guys, not gonna lie, I'm super jealous of your snow. Random question, where did you get your high tunnel and how did you set it up your supply? And it's a Gothic arch style high tunnel or greenhouse. It's not technically a greenhouse. I guess it technically is a greenhouse if it's a structure that's heated, right? I think we've had this debate before. I don't know. It wasn't heated for several of the first years that we had it, but it's been one of the best investments we've made on our property. We put it in the very first fall we were here, I think, which is 2016. It was not heated until 2021, I think, was when that was retrofitted. So we used it for several years just as a cold frame, and we had a handyman. His name was Eddie. We did not put it up ourselves because that is not our strength. So we had Eddie come in and he did it, and the posts that go into the ground, those can be put up like our other high tunnel and just be anchored kind of like rebar stakes, or you can have them concreted, cemented in, which is what we did here, so it's a little bit more solid. Yeah, there's all kinds of different things you can do. You can get end wall kits. We couldn't afford those at the time, so we just had the back one framed in with 2x4s, and then the front one, it was actually cheaper to frame it in and put the shakes on the front, and then Eddie built a couple of custom doors, and it looks a little prettier, a little bit more elevated, having a little bit of wood on the front. It kind of warms it up. Anyway, I just love that structure. Mary said, can you leave those concrete pots outside during the winter? We do, and we haven't had any issues leaving them out. Carrie said, would your mother be willing
willing to share what she knows about tinctures and herbal remedies. I understand we are responsible for our own health. Maybe it could be a series on the Highlights channel. Thank you so much for sharing what works for you guys. It's such a blessing. I was talking to her about the rosemary tincture, or whenever I bring up anything like that, she gets so excited. Like, oh, I'm so glad you're getting into it finally, So anyway, I'm sure that she is going to be in on a lot of it, because we're going to probably go forage for some things to make some of those recipes that she would make for us when we were little. Sally said, I love this video. Please do more. Where did you learn to make things like this? Did her parents make things like this? Her parents did not. My mom has like this insatiable desire to learn things like that. And she's always been a goer and a doer. Like she got her first kind of job at, was she 9 years old? There was a little like pop-up greenhouse kind of thing that went up just down the street from where she lived, and she would walk down there. I think she cleaned out plant trays or something like that. Like, she was always interested and gotten herself involved, and that was kind of back in the time where kids could kind of wander around a little bit more freely. And I think my grandparents were just like, sure, just like, go down, knock yourself out if you want to go down there. But she's always had an interest in learning of those sorts of things, and has always been, I don't know. Yeah, so I learned a lot from her and still do. Flubber Blubber said, maybe I missed it, but did you talk about where to cut the rosemary stems? I did not. I just kind of cut it into a shape that I like it. I cut it right above a set of leaves. Simple Southern Garden said, the rosemary was so interesting. Do you dehydrate your herbs for winter use? I have before, several different times, different things, and I think I will do some sage and thyme and basil and some of those like real core herbs. I'll do some of those this next year. My sister-in-law this last year, she got really into preserving and drying and all kinds of things. The sister-in-law we put the garden in for, the raised beds in that little octagon sort of greenhouse. And I cut back one of my thyme plants kind of early in the season, and I just asked her, because I didn't really want to mess with it, just asked her if she wanted to have it to dry, and she did. She dried it and then gave us little bottles of dried thyme from our own garden that she did all the work for, and I have used so much of that. She also made us a basket of preserved things like jams and jellies, and there was a lot of things. There was also like beeswax melts, and then rosemary salt, and that's been fun. That one's sitting right by my stove because that has got a really yummy, savory flavor that I can use in a lot of the dishes that I make. Celeste said, do you notice that you use the honey cayenne apple cider vinegar? Okay, just in case you didn't realize. Now, I did not realize it right away. However, it's totally fine. I wouldn't use it for hair care products, which I wish I would have realized it before I talked about hair care products. Probably want to use straight apple cider vinegar if you're wanting to use it for that. But in this case, I'm planning on doing the tincture orally, so the honey cayenne is going to be totally fine for that use. I didn't really even notice a difference in smell, so I don't know. Gardening Grandma said, how are you going to flip those pots over to fill them? They're so big and beautiful. I guess we'll have to wait until spring to find out. Here's what we normally do. We put a bunch of burlap sacks on, so like if the pot's tipped this way, we put a whole bunch of burlap sacks right here, and then like 2 or 3 of us get on it and just tip it up onto the burlap sack so that it's got like somewhere sort of soft to land. And then so now it's kind of like laying on the burlap sack, so then we'll tip it a little bit back and pull the sack out, and then we can set it down. Did you get that? I don't know if that was a good explanation or not. Also, a question on the tincture. What type of alcohol would you recommend using for rosemary? Is there one that works best? I would probably just use vodka for that. I think that would be the widest range of applications in terms of like flavor and stuff like that if you're going to use it for cooking later. And the last question from that one, Blessed to Be Wife Mommy 343 said, so interested on the tincture. Do you have a YouTube account you suggest I could follow for seeing into this more? I do not. Go into the comment section though. I don't tend to research a lot on the YouTube front of things, but there were a lot of good suggestions in the comment section as to some people, and I noticed a common, there were a few that were listed a lot. So check out the comment section and you can find a couple of accounts. And the last video from this week, which we did skip posting on Samantha's birthday, so we only have 4 videos today we're answering questions from, And so the last one was planting flower seeds. They were Echinacea purpurea and so many geraniums. We planted 360 that day and already have 10 going. So I'll have 370 geraniums to use. I'm so excited. And then we also potted up 2 iris rhizomes that were sent out. They're the variety Ginger Snap. They were sent out from a couple of you who live in Kentucky, and it was one of her dad's favorite varieties of iris, and I just think it's so special. I'm excited. They are supposed to smell like root beer. I think that sounds awesome. Jess Emmy said, where do you and Aaron buy the golf carts? I live in New Mexico and there's only one place that sells golf carts in town, making them unrealistically expensive. I did park one of the golf carts in the barn at the end of that video. I tried to park both, but only one fit. We bought those at Uncharted RV in Meridian, Idaho. There's actually several places that sell golf carts in our area, so I think that they're priced maybe better than what you can find down there in New Mexico. Patty Flynn said, can you replant the ones you thinned out? Absolutely, you can. You can always thin and separate and plant the ones that you've thinned out. Southern Latitude said, you inspired me a few weeks ago to grow geraniums, and now I have 18 starts, lavender and apple blossom. Question, have you ever dropped a tray carrying doubles? LOL, you're brave. I noticed that question quite a lot. Several of you must have had that experience. And not that this works, but just in case, I've never dropped a tray that I don't think I have. Maybe I've blocked it. That's possible. I don't think I can't remember dropping a tray full of freshly seeded things. I just know that when I'm carrying stuff from the greenhouse into here, I try to make every step count. I try to haul as many things as I can, which is probably not a good idea. Michelle said, I've been checking Gardener Supply regularly for the paper pots, but they've been out of stock. I know. That was my last one, my last refill. Do you happen to know if they will be coming back? I don't know, and we need to look into that. If we can't find them there, we're going to try to source them and get them in our store because they are awesome. I love to use those, and I would love to have some by our main seed starting season because I've got a bunch of trays, and I would love to be able to utilize those, and I like the size of the cells and the ease that they come apart with. So anyway, we'll keep you updated on that. Samantha said, is the snail and bug killer that you use safe to use around cats? I live in the UK. The damage the slugs and snails cause to my plants is upsetting. However upsetting, I am hesitant to use anything that may harm my cats or wildlife. I don't think so. Let me just double check. I mean, I use it and my cats are fine. So yeah, it says it's approved for organic gardening and it's safe to use around people and pets. The active ingredients in this particular one, it's from Bonide. It's a Captain Jack's bug and slug killer. So it does slug, snails, and then some other things, earwigs, cutworms. But it's an iron phosphate and spinosad-based pellet. It's like little pellets that come out and you just spread them around your plant. Misky said, are all echinacea good for medicinals? I don't think so. There are, what is it, like 8, 9, 10, somewhere right around in there, different types of echinacea, and there's just a handful of those 8, 9, 10 that are used for medicinals, and Echinacea purpurea is one of them. I want to say there's 3 varieties. Let me Google that. There's 3 different types, I think. Yeah, Echinacea purpurea, Echinacea pallida, and Echinacea angustifolia are used for medicinal purposes. We'll probably delve a little bit further into that when we get ready to plant some of those out. Anita said, can't believe it's already this time of year. Does every order of the paper variety come with the plastic anchors, or do you order those separately? Well, at the time, you could order it as a kit where you got the tray and then you got the little plastic clips and then you got one of the paper pot inserts. And then you could order just the paper pot inserts because once you have your setup, which is the tray and the clips, all you need is the paper pot portion, which I thought was such a good idea. So that's how it was. So yeah, again, we'll look into that. Also, can you use the heat mats and grow lights at the same time? You absolutely can. Love those geranium colors and are all echinacea perennials. And as far as I know, any echinacea I have ever been around has been a perennial in our area, which we were formerly a Zone 5 a couple of years ago, and they were still all perennial in our area. And this is the last question, you guys, for today. Ozark View said, does echinacea bloom the first season when started from seed? Most of them will, but not reliably. There might be some that don't. The Echinacea purpurea has been the easiest one for me to grow, and it's one of my favorite varieties of all of them. They're just so classic. They don't need a stratification or cold period. The seed don't. In order to germinate, you can just start them along with everything else. And mine, so I started a bunch last
last winter, I started a bunch. We planted them in the cut flower garden as little seedlings. They were prolific. I probably have pictures or video. I will look for it. They were gorgeous first year plants, and I planted some out in our flower beds too because I had leftovers, and I would love just to mass plant those somewhere because they look good for most of the season. So I've been really happy with those. And now the other echinacea seeds I've tried, like Cheyenne Spirit, their Green Twister, I can't remember all of the different varieties I've tried to start, but I started them right alongside my Echinacea purpurea without giving them a cold stratification period, and they were just like, it kind of bombed in terms of germination because they need that stratification, and I was just trying to push it. I think they would be an excellent candidate for a winter sowing method sort of seed starting system, because you plant them, you put them outside in the cold, they get that stratification period, and then they can come up. The other way I was thinking of starting some is getting them planted in their trays and then putting them in the cold frames in front of the Hartley. I'd have to sneak in between some artichoke plants that I've still got in there that are still looking beautiful. But I think that they would receive enough cool in there to germinate better than in the main greenhouse or in here in the studio. And you guys, that is it for today's recap video. I felt like that went really, really fast, probably because Aaron isn't here. We didn't get to do as much chatting as normal. So hopefully by next week we will be back up to our normal everything, and I hope he's feeling better by then. And thank you again, HoseLink, for sponsoring today's recap video. I hope you guys are all having a really good start to your week, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.